Welcome to the TTS Talking Early Years podcast. Each week, we'll be joined by educational experts from across the globe, offering exclusive insights, inspiration, and guidance to help practitioners unlock the potential for learning in the early years. Hello, my name is Ruth Lue-Quee, your host for this week's TTS Talking Early Years podcast. I'm an educational consultant, also known as Mind and Me Teacher, founder of MMT Play, and I'm passionate about inclusion and play. Throughout this series, we'll be discussing a range of topics aimed at supporting SEN in the early years, inspiring you with guidance and resources to enhance your practice. And I'm delighted to introduce Anna Speke as today's guest. Welcome to the podcast, Anna. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I've loved some of our conversations we've had already. Before we get started again today, could you just give us a quick introduction about yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, so I'm Anna. I'm an education officer at nasen, the National Association for Special Educational Needs. And as part of that role, I lead on our early years work, supporting the early years workforce to support children and their families in lots of ways, so training, resources, support. I'm also a SENCO and a teacher working in various specialist and mainstream settings in the West Midlands, also a forest school lead as well.
Amazing. You bring so much experience and expertise to our conversation. So I'm really excited to delve into this episode where we're going to be focusing on how we work with external agencies. And I know this can be something that can be a bit of a minefield for many practitioners. You're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Who do I refer to? There's this child in my setting. I'm identifying these needs. What steps I take, what happens. And obviously we're going to be very mindful that it will depend upon authority, where you live, location, but hopefully people will come away from this podcast and have an idea of the sorts of external agencies that they can work with, health professionals, to provide support for children with SEN within their settings. So this is a bit of a big question to start with, but I want to sort of give our listeners an overview of some of the key UK-based agencies and services that they can access for children within their settings.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I think as you said quite rightly, as professionals in all our varying fields, we really need to be working together to make sure that we've got a coordinated approach for support for children and their families. So I'm mainly talking from an English perspective when I'm talking about the agencies. So as you said, it will depend on where in the country we are, and I can signpost some ways to find out what's available in specific areas. But in general, the main services are going to be things like speech and language therapy, who will support with difficulties with speech, language and communication, including pronunciation. Also often difficulties with eating, drinking and swallowing, which not everybody always knows that speech and language therapy services can support with. And so that's one of the key ones, particularly in early years. We know that that's one of the main areas that practitioners would like support in and feel that children need support in. So that will be one of the key ones. Educational psychology service as well would be another key one, supporting children and families using psychological theories, promoting positive mental health, developing an understanding of how a child's learning and how they'll best develop. So they tend to identify strengths and barriers and devise programs of support and support us as practitioners to offer that support appropriately. Occupational therapy, or OT, as it might be called. So occupations being basically activities that are encountered every day. So supporting children with overcoming challenges in those sort of everyday activities. So occupational therapists cover a wide range of things. So it might be fine motor skills, gross motor skills, eating and drinking, personal care, sensory needs, lots and lots of different areas. Often local OT services will have a general guidance document as well. So that's quite a useful thing to look for. And if a local area doesn't have that, there are many that are available to have a look at for kind of general advice and guidance. So they're always quite useful to have a Google of. Portage might be in some areas, not in every area. So Portage being family-focused, home visiting educational service for specifically preschool children with SEND and their families. Lots of play-based support through Portage, if that happens to be in the area that you're working in. And then specialist learning teams as well. So they will have different specialisms potentially focused on autism or specific learning difficulties. And then other teams like visual impairment team, hearing impairment team often. And then, of course, health and care services as well. So paediatricians, health visitors, social services, the list goes on. So basically, that's to say there is support, there are services out there. So yeah, I don't want any practitioner to ever feel like they're on their own and there's nowhere that they can go or be signposted to get some support and get some help and advice.
So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking that I need to access one of those agencies, what's the first step? What do they need to do? Where do they go?
Yeah, so the key thing is to see what services are in your area. Well, speak to your SENCO, depending on what your context is. So SENCOs will often have a really good understanding of what is available in an area. But for our own knowledge as well, we can look at what's called the local offer, which is each area will have a published local offer. So if you Google your local area and local offer, then it will come up with a range of services that are available, which is brilliant for our knowledge as professionals, but also really useful for us to be able to signpost to families as well for support, because again, no family should be feeling like there's no support out there. So we need to find out what is around in our area so that we can signpost to families as well to support them.
Amazing. And then would it be their SENCO that has to put in a referral, or is that something that a practitioner could do themselves?
So ideally it should be a combination, because as we talked about in our last episode, SEN is everybody's responsibility and we should all be working on that together. As key person or teacher or teaching assistant, we are likely to know the child really well. So ideally it should be a joint effort. It sort of depends on processes within your setting, but ideally we would want to feed in. And then referrals always need parent and carer permission as well. So parents and carers would also be involved and would be not be informed that we are doing that, but be involved in that decision to make that referral as well. So yeah, that's kind of what the referral process would look like. Again, each area has slightly different ways of going about it, so it's hard to talk specifics, but SENCO is the person who should know what that looks like for each service in your particular area as well.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's really useful as well, talking about how it is that collaboration, and that means the child, that means the parents, that means the professionals all working together to then signpost to the most appropriate and suitable agencies. And obviously when we are doing that, we're going to be sharing information. It's going to be highly sensitive information about these children, about these families, about what's happening in school. So there's got to be best practices around how we actually put our referrals in, or how we collate data or capture family voice or pupil voice. What are the types of things that you would suggest that practitioners within early years are doing to make sure that they're coordinating with external agencies in the best way possible?
I think a key thing that families often report is they do not want to be telling the same story over and over to lots of different people. So the more that we can capture that information in one go, the better. And it is very much about sitting together, having that collaborative process, identifying strengths. So seeing that child holistically. So identifying strengths as well as any barriers to learning and development as well to put into those referrals. I think a really key point as well is that if we are making a referral or have made one, that doesn't mean everything then stops and goes on hold until we find out the outcome of that referral. We need to do everything we possibly can to meet that child's needs and remove those barriers in the meantime. So yeah, we know that there are a big waiting list for some services, but we can still be exploring what's available, what we can tap into, and support that's offered by different organisations to help us to support children and families in the meantime as well. We don't want to feel like made a referral, tick the box, that's it. Actually, we still need to be making sure, of course, that we are meeting need as we go through and as we wait for that to potentially come to fruition or not. So I think as well, there are things that we can do to develop relationships with external agencies more generally to help give us some knowledge, some support, some guidance, to help us build those relationships, which will kind of improve progress and outcomes for our children. So learning as much as we can about the roles and remits of those agencies, keeping notes around discussions, asking if we do have an agency coming in to work with one of our children, if we possibly can, asking if we can observe that, if it's appropriate. And I've definitely learned so much from sitting in speech and language sessions or occupational therapy sessions, for example. I know it's not always possible because of capacity and ratios and everything, but if we can, that's really useful as well. So lots of different things that we can do. There are also other organisations. So thinking of speech and language, for example, Speech and Language UK are a fantastic organisation that have free resources and various things that we can tap into. So there are lots of organisations that we can pull resources, pull guidance from to support us, to support the children that we're working with as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it comes back to that magic wand that I spoke about in a previous episode. It shouldn't be a tick box. It shouldn't be, right, we've referred them to OT, so now when OT come and work with this child, everything's going to fall into place. You know, life doesn't work like that. Children are children. Child development does not work like that. So it's really key that we're looking at the need, and what you've just mentioned there about being able to go into meetings as much as possible. What you learn from conversations with professionals about these children will help you help other children too. So gathering as much information as you can. And I think that's what's so key. It goes back to what we've said a few times now. It's everyone's responsibility. Everybody needs to have that CPD, that training in how they can make reasonable adjustments in support strategies that they can put into place, that they can try to support these children, regardless of whether their referral has come through yet or it hasn't come through yet. Because the more that you try stuff as well, the more you've got to help that child. You can say, we've put this in place and we've done it consistently and we saw this impact. And it all helps as well with the conversations that you're going to be having. I think one of the things to perhaps just touch upon in terms of an admin type GDPR scenario when we're thinking like that is making sure that you've got written consent from the parents or the caregiver, and that that it is within their wishes that they want that down and you've got there, and that you're then following your data protection like policy within your school, however that works, or within your setting within early years, and providing adequate timeframes as well, because professionals need time to get referrals in. So, there are long waiting lists, but equally you will have paperwork to fill in. The professional who's working with that child day in, day out will probably have a questionnaire to fill in. The parent will probably have a questionnaire to fill in. So we can't be expecting, there's this form and I haven't done this form and I need to get, Ruth's mom to fill it in tomorrow. That's not fair. We need to make sure that we're providing adequate timeframes for everybody involved so that we can get the best outcome for the child. And ultimately, that it's child-centred. Who are we doing it for? Everything needs to centre around that child and just essentially getting the best thing that we can for them.
Yeah,
I think that's been really, really useful. You've provided some really good guidance, and like just strategy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's nice to have a strategy. Like, people are hopefully going to listen to this and be like, okay, I know there's those people that I can go to. I know I can access them this way. And in terms of your role at nasen, is there, are practitioners able to get in touch with you? Is there a service there that can provide more guidance?
So we are, as a sort of a general SEN charity, and not knowing the children that they're working with, we obviously can't comment or support on particular children or particular cases because we don't know the children in the cases. However, what we are always happy to do, and what I'm always happy to do, is signpost to organisations that might be able to support or offer just general advice. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. People are always very welcome to get in touch with me. That is what we're there for. We're there to support the workforce, to support the children. And if it's going to have an impact for children, then we're always happy to do it.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. And I know so many people will be listening to this and thinking, yes, oh my goodness, I've got somewhere to go. And so thank you ever so much for joining me today. That's been really, really great to talk to you. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to say a huge thank you to our guest, Anna, for joining us and providing such valuable insights. You've been listening to the TTS Talking Early Years podcast with me, Ruth Lue-Quee, and Anna Speke. If you've been inspired by our conversation today, don't forget you can sign up via the link in our episode notes to be the first to hear about future episodes and access exclusive follow-up content, including ideas for your settings and links to relevant resources.